TV presents Banana Bread for Beginners, and here with this week's recipe is your host, Allison White.
Hello everybody, my name is Allison and welcome to the first and only installment of my cooking show, Banana Bread for Beginners. And this week we are going to make a little bit of a twist of banana bread. It's chocolate banana bread. This is my grandma's recipe. I absolutely love it. I love it when she makes it. So first we're going to kind of go over the ingredients. So right here we have 1.5 cups of flour. Now you can use any type of flour, wheat flour, white flour, anything that works for you. And then we have about a tablespoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking soda and then half a teaspoon of baking powder. And you can kind of have those mixed. It really doesn't matter. Also, we have half a cup of chocolate chips. And you can use dark chocolate, milk chocolate, bittersweet, whichever one this is kind of like your preference. We also have half a cup of white sugar. Also, you can use any type of sugar you want. And then a fourth a cup of, brown sugar, and then a half a cup of cocoa powder. And then the most important ingredient is the bananas, and we have 2 bananas here. This recipe calls for 4 small ones, but we have 2 large ones, and it'll be just fine. And then also we need a half a cup of softened butter. This has been at room temperature for like an hour or so, so you can help mix it all together pretty well. Also we need 2 large eggs. 2 large eggs. And then another kind of like material that we need are these measuring cups. I've already got everything pre-measured, but when you're baking along with me, you're going to need some measuring cups and measuring spoons, a whisk, and a spatula, and then a bowl, a pretty large bowl of plastic, anything like that. And then we also need a oven-safe glass kind of bread pan. And okay, so now we're going to get started. We're going to mix all of the wet ingredients into our bowl. So we're going to start off with our half a cup of butter. And then in this case, wet ingredients includes the sugar. So we're also going to mix the sugar into the bowl, as well as the brown sugar. And then you want to get your whisk or your fork or anything works, and you kind of want to mush it together so it blends all together. Now it would be better if you had a hand mixer, but I don't have one today, so we're just going to use this whisk. And then use the spatula to get the butter out of the whisk. Now this is kind of a lengthy process right here. It's going to take a couple of minutes to get all this whisked together, but once you're done with it, you kind of want it to look like a soft paste. And like I said, if you have a hand mixer, that'd be great. As you're doing this, you want to make sure that you have your oven at 350 degrees. You want that preheating. It takes about 8 minutes to preheat. So I'm going to mix all this together. Now I really like this recipe because the bananas aren't as strong in this banana bread. It's more of a chocolate base, so it tastes really, really good. And I'm not that big of a fan of bananas, so. Okay, now we want to get all of the butter and stuff out of the whisk. Now this isn't completely mixed together, but if you did have that hand mixer or stand mixer, you would notice that it would be mixed together and it'd have kind of like stiff peaks when you lift up the mixer. Now this is kind of the difficult part, trying to get all the butter out of the whisk. And then also you can use a spatula to kind of get the bottom and kind of mush the butter into the sugar as well. That works too. Okay, so we're going to go for a quick commercial break, and once we come back, we'll mix all of the dry ingredients together, and then we'll kind of finish off our banana bread. So here's a word from our sponsors. Do you ever have trouble trying to study at night without waking up your roommate? Do you ever try to read to your child at night, but cheap-made clamp lights keep falling? You'll never have those problems with book lights. With book lights, you don't have to worry about disturbing others with the discreet light. And with the bookmark attached to the light. Welcome back, guys. That was a word from our sponsors. So now we are going to mix all of the dry ingredients, including the bananas, into our bowl. So we're going to peel these bananas and kind of stick them into the bowl. And then use the whisk to kind of mush them together. And you kind of want your bananas to be really, really soft, almost kind of close to becoming brown, because then it makes them easier to mush together. You can also use frozen bananas, which work too. If you freeze your bananas, they last a lot longer. And then if you're going to use that, you just want to make sure that all of your bananas are thawed out and ready to go. Now we're also going to add our eggs. We're going to use 2 eggs. You want to make sure you crack it on the table, and then that way none of the shell kind of gets into the eggs. And then mix it together until you get kind of a liquidy paste. It's going to look kind of unappetizing, but once you mix all the dry ingredients together as well, it'll look a lot better. Okay. Now once you got all that mixed together, we're going to add all the dry ingredients. So we have our baking soda and our baking powder mixture, which is very, very vital. Don't forget that. And then we're going to put in our cocoa powder, which is going to make this taste like chocolate. And then we're also going to put in our chocolate chips as well. And then lastly, we're going to put in our flour. Now, if you're using a hand mixer, make sure that you don't put in a lot of flour at a time, because then you will have a powdery mess on your hands. I did have that problem a couple of times and made a big mess, but it's also the fun of it. So you want to mix it all together and make sure you don't spill any. And you want to make sure, if you're using a hand mixer, like I said, and I'll stress this, it's a lot easier because then the banana kind of incorporates into the mixture and it's not in clumps like this. And then once it's kind of mixed together, use the rest of the flour and mix it in. And it'll start to thicken up and become really hard to mix, but you're just going to have to use your use your elbow grease and get into it. Mix it in together and then put in the rest of the flour. Like I said, this is kind of an easier recipe. They do have more difficult recipes, but this is one of our easier ones. And once you are done mixing it all together, you're going to want to grease a pan like this and grease it with like Pam or something, and then put it in the oven for 50 minutes. And then once you get it out of the oven for about 50 minutes, you're going to have a beautiful loaf like this. So thank you all, guys, and I hope you all enjoy.